All right, I think we might actually be on live. I think. Van, if you get the notice that I am on live, shoot me a text or give me a call here real quick. We're going to go as though we are on live. A little red circle went on our website here. I've not seen anything else pop up on Facebook indicating that we are live. Unless it's the old stream trying to kick back in again. I have no idea. Remember, computers are here to make our lives easier. Just keep telling yourself that. But sometimes we go around in circles more often than we care to think about. Well, the phone rang briefly, so I don't know if that was Van or not. You are looking, at the risk of sounding like Brent Musburger, you are looking live at Helene, which is an absolutely monstrous storm. I mean, as we were talking about, this thing is exploding, and the one saving grace, and believe me, it's not much of one right now, is that 9:18, we're live! Woohoo! Alrighty. For those of you who are just joining us, I just saw my high five on there. Alright. So, now that I know that we are live and in business here, let's get down to business. Helene is an absolutely monstrous storm. It has performed above expectations. It is one that is strengthened. I mean, it's Jeremy Draper, the engineer. Hang on, 1 second. We're going, Jeremy. We got it. Okay, thanks. Well, how about I'm on live right now, and I will get back to you. I'm on with the world right now. Jeremy, the world says hello. Okay, there we go. Okay, see you later. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the serious stuff here. All right. At 7 a.m. this morning, the storm was 960 millibars, and it was at 100 miles an hour. So here we are 10, 12 hours later, 14 hours later, we're down to 941. So now we're getting into heavy-duty territory. This storm is very Hugo-esque in its strengthening and what it will likely do. In fact, it's got a stronger wind than Hugo at this point. 941 on the millibars. So it dropped 20 millibars since this morning. In fact, it's dropped 10 millibars since 5 o'clock. So that, again, is phenomenal. So what are we looking at here? All right, so you've got what is an extremely well-defined and tight circular eye. That is the sign that the storm has really, really got its act together. The eye itself is about 22 miles across, so that's a fairly small eye as well. We are now from the eye to the coast, we're 40 some miles. Obviously the eye wall will be getting there much sooner than that, and if I have to keep looking over to the right here, that's because I'm trying to see whatever questions you all have got coming in, because we're live. So again, phenomenal storm here. You can see the lightning as it's really also exploded on this system over the last several. When we look at the storm at 5 o'clock, there was very little lightning in this, but look at all those lightning strikes in there. So again, this thing is revving up. Thank goodness it doesn't have that much more time over water, because it would likely make a 5. At this point, it'll probably fall just short, but it's a solid 4. And with that, you are looking at, let me minimize that off there. I think I can get away with doing that. So what we are looking at is an amazing system. I'm going to pop the warnings on here for you, national, just to highlight things here real quick. So those are our warnings. We've got the high wind warning in the southeast, and we've got the wind advisory the rest of the area. So you see the bright green there along the West Florida coast. That is for storm surge warnings. Now, in the area down here where the storm's coming in southeast of Tallahassee, obviously Tallahassee is not a coastal town, but in this area here, Cedar Key, down in that direction. You are looking at storm surges that could be up to 20 feet. So you take your regular sea level, add 20 feet to it. That doesn't mean you go 20 feet inland. That means you go to 20 feet of elevation. For most of that, that's going to be some places half a mile inundation with the ocean coming in. So you add that 20 feet, then you put the waves on top of that. So again, this is a potentially catastrophic situation for those folks. The story that I relate, because I was part of the forecast and part of the whole setup with the system, was Hugo. And the reason we talk about Hugo is because it was a Cat 4, the first big storm that had hit the U.S. in quite some time when it came in. But it came in near McClellanville, South Carolina, outside of Charleston. And the story goes that the people in McClellanville, they took shelter in the high school there. The thing was, that was basically the epicenter for where the storm did its worst. They were on the second floor of the high school, and apparently the water came up like to people's necks on the second floor. That's what we're talking about, how when an ocean comes in with a storm surge, why it is unsurvivable for most instances. So again, hopefully I know there are storm chasers down there. Hopefully they're not being silly and they're taking whatever precaution, because this is a huge deal. So let's look at what the storm has been doing. That's your overall setup here. Well, about schools, no idea about schools. That's one of those things that'll play out tomorrow. So here's how the storm has moved today. You can watch the eye becoming much more organized. That is a sign that the storm continues to strengthen. That's off the Tampa radar. So we were looking at the Tallahassee radar a second ago. The storm will plow in over the next couple of hours, and as it does so, we're going to concentrate on us now. And so here's what we can expect. Future track, and we'll advance that now through this evening. We've had rain out there, and it really not necessarily a part of Helene just yet, although it's rained heavily in eastern Kentucky, but we're really going to begin to see the banding show up as we get you on into tomorrow morning. So again, you're seeing these heavy tropical rain bands come through, and we're talking torrential amounts of rain with these, where you get an inch or two in an hour. And again, that'll be continuing through 10 and 11 o'clock. Now watch, this modeling is actually running a little bit more slowly, so the storm, at least on this particular run, has slowed down. So now we're getting into noon and beyond. So where's the circulation? About over Somerset. If you have a home barometer, watch it tomorrow. It's going to be similar to what happened on March 2nd with the barometric pressure, because it is going to go really, really low. But at least off of our in-house modeling here, it's bringing the center right over Lake Cumberland, and that's at 2 o'clock, and then eventually that rotates off toward the north and northwest, with a center somewhere near Springfield, actually about over Maker's Mark, by tomorrow afternoon, with strong winds in association with this. So I think we're going to adjust some of our timing that we were talking about, at least based off this modeling. So again, it may be coming on a little bit more slower trajectory by the time it gets up to us. So that's how it runs through tomorrow afternoon. Here are the new wind gust potentials, and again, this is just potential, but 40, 50 mile per hour winds certainly are likely. 50 to 60 probable, at least in some places. Again, that's coming off the modeling where you're seeing it that high. There are going to be some places, I think, especially in the high terrain in the southeast, where we could go 60 plus on the winds. So again, just an amazing situation for us to see one come up this strongly this far north and northwest, and those high winds will carry us into the afternoon. We have wind advisories up for just about the entire area. Do not be surprised that if tomorrow that high wind warning that you see in the blue gets expanded beyond where it is now, which is the Hal Rogers Parkway and Highway 80 there and southeast of it. Don't be surprised if that gets moved to the north, at least some. The other thing is going to be the rain. General 2 to 4 inches of rain. Pockets will get more than that. So now here is the problem. You are talking about saturating amounts of rain. you're talking about trees that are fully laden with leaves. So there is a lot of weight on here. And then you throw in the winds that'll gust 50 miles per hour and at times more. That is a recipe where we can begin to see tree damage, may come down on power lines. I think there will be some power outages around the area at some point during the day tomorrow with the March 2nd event. Right now, I do not see this getting that strong. But if we use that as the benchmark, okay, come back a notch. And that maybe end up where we're going to be with this. Remember, in the March 2nd storm, there were no leaves on the trees when we were seeing those hurricane-force winds. Little different scenario, but this may be an interesting thing to watch tomorrow as well. That if we break into a little sun after those initial rain bands come by, then you can start a little bit more mixing in the atmosphere. And similar to what happened on March the 2nd, remember those winds didn't hit until the sun came out. And then we essentially brought the low-level jet right down to the surface. So if we see some sun as the storm begins to pull to the west and across parts of eastern Kentucky, maybe even into central Kentucky, if we get some sun, if we could mix those higher winds that are aloft down to the surface in addition to just the circulation going around that low as it comes on by. Again, about schools, you have to check on the schools. I see Fayette County, somebody's asking about Fayette County. So skies so light and orange outside. Well, it's going to be reflection off of something. So we've got the clouds and the rain out there. So there's some light nearby that's reflecting off the clouds and off the rain. I can only get a couple of questions at a time as I am looking at the. Oh, wait, there's my audio. I'm just trying to get more questions or see more questions on here. So, hey, it worked. Yeah, and hopefully anybody in the path of that storm in Florida has taken whatever precautions are necessary. Now, we were talking, well, actually, I'll just go ahead and show you. Here's our live radar to show that we're live, 9:30. And so, again, we've had rain overspread the area now, and it's a wet scenario. But this is what I put together for the early shows, and I'm going to update this for the 11. So the worst, this part will be true. The worst impacts are going to be near and north of the storm's path. Now, we were taking it earlier from Knoxville to Lake Cumberland to Owensboro. This is a little more to the right of that track, at least on that current modeling that came in, which would be Knoxville to Somerset. So, okay, the end of Lake Cumberland, and then on up more instead of Owensboro, maybe around Breckinridge County, Brandenburg areas where that was looking. So that's part one. Part two, the rain will be increasing tonight. We'll see that rain get heavier and steadier tonight. Tropical bands really, I think, are going to come into play more after 6 a.m. I've got 1 o'clock there. So looking at that modeling, that may have to be adjusted a little bit later. So again, that's just kind of massaging the forecast a little bit. So the wind does look to be less than what we had on March 2nd. That said, again, this still looks formidable. Sustained 25 to 40, gusts 50 to 60 plus, certainly on the table with this, and stay weather aware. And finally, with that widespread heavy rain. So 2 to 4 inches plus certainly are within the realm of possibility for us. So while I look at some of the other questions here, let's take you back to the Tallahassee radar. And again, you're seeing the stats on the storm. You're seeing where it is. And again, as it makes its approach. And, well, the other thing to take note of here, look at the tornado warnings. And there have been several of them all day today. And in fact, you've got the confirmed tornado between Savannah and Hinesville in Georgia. So at this point, I think the bigger severe threat is probably, there's our radar, is probably going to be on the other side of the mountains. Where that looks like that part of the energy stays over here, and as it comes across, which by the way, that coming across the mountains may also help to clear the sky a little bit, where you get downsloping off the Appalachians. So that's another thing to think about why we may see that little bit of clearing. But again, there you see again off the Tallahassee radar. Again, that's just really enclosed eye. Okay. So again, yeah, hopefully anybody who you knew who was down there in Florida along that coastal area has gone ahead and if they haven't gotten out now, they're not getting out. until sometime in the future, because everything is inundated down there already. I was seeing pictures from Tampa, where Tampa got sideswiped by this. They didn't get the full brunt, which is about to hit in these areas of Florida. We come in Perry, I think, was that Adalia? But again, look at all the lightning strikes with that. So if you're measuring at this point, from the edge of the eye, we're 30 miles out, so an hour and change until the eye is actually ashore, which is when you determine when the landfall is. But again, Perry, you see there in the Florida Panhandle. So Amy's watching from near Albany, Georgia. And Amy, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a hurricane force winds probably coming through there. Oh, that's what I was going to show you, the hurricane warnings. I showed you the advisories a second ago, so you're going to see them again. But what is amazing, oh, that's just the local, what is amazing, I thought at least, is that hurricane warnings are north of Macon, almost to Atlanta. So that is some stuff that's pretty incredible. That's part of the speed of the storm, part of just how strong the winds are and how big the storm is. What's also interesting is the high wind warnings through the western North Carolina, or tropical storm warnings into the North Carolina mountains, but the high mountains there could see wind gusts easily over 100, or at least to 100. But they're also 6,000 feet up. No, this is not too late in the season, Jesse. We're still in the prime of hurricane season, right? We're smack in the middle of it. So that part is, that part is that it's not La Nina or anything. This is still very much hurricane season, which had a slow start. And in fact, for the year, I keep mentioning Hugo, that was August when that one happened. So we're actually slower pace than that year in '89. Whitley, Angel says Whitley's closed tomorrow. Again, check your local school. Don't, whatever we say here, just check your local school district, or lax18.com. Let's see if I'm getting any other questions here. Okay. Is it going to be safe to drive tomorrow? It's going to be raining hard. It's just extra care. Give yourself extra time. Treat it like a winter storm, or at least there's some snow on the ground. Give yourself extra time. Now, the winds will also be strong. If you drive a high-profile vehicle, keep both hands on the wheel, obviously, and just drive with extra care. Slow down. It's one of those things. Theoretically, we're planning. My tailgate group is planning on going to the Ole Miss game with a departure time tomorrow. So. But again, we may be delaying that some just because of the weather and the fact that I may also be working. Let's see. Let's see. It's something about the Chicken Festival. I didn't know the Chicken Festival was this weekend. Well, that may be canceled as well. But again, check anything like this. Check with your local folks. Looking for any other weather questions. You see everybody's asking for their specific county. This is not like a snow where 5 miles or 10 miles makes a difference. What we've been saying is this is basically everyone. We've given you kind of a range of things, a range of possibilities, and we'll go back over this again. So our overall impacts. And with these, so again, this is, again, for everybody. Let's just put them all on here right off the bat. I've got, starting at 6 a.m. for the tropical bands coming through. That time maybe just, I certainly think now the 1 o'clock that I put on there earlier is going to be adjusted a little bit later into the afternoon. Just because it looks like the storm motion might be a little slower getting up here, getting across the mountains. The wind will be, again, this is for everyone. So I know you're asking for Rowan, asking for Montgomery, Bath, or wherever. This is everybody here. Wind less than March the 2nd. That said, it is going to be a day where the winds will be very, very strong. 25 to 40 sustained, gusts 50 to 60 plus. In addition to that, the widespread heavy rain potential is there. So your advisories, wind advisory for most, high wind warning in the southeast from the Hal Rogers and Highway 80 south and southeast. But again, don't be surprised if that gets extended north at some point later on tonight. The heavy rain potential. And with that heavy rain potential, again, general 2 to 4 inches. That's a lot of water. And that's area wide. There'll be some folks, some folks may get 1.75 inches, okay? Some folks may get 4.5, pushing 5 in places. That's all possible. General 2 to 4 inches of rain, which regardless is a lot of water, and yes, there could be some flood problems. We do have the flood watches that are up basically south of the Mountain Parkway and south of the Bluegrass Parkway. And finally, we'll run through here again just potential wind speeds. So again, this is just off one computer model, and you see as we get to 9 o'clock how those numbers are beginning to ramp up. We get you toward the middle part of the day, and you're seeing 40s and 50s flash through during the interim times where I put the pause points in. Saw a quick 60 there, Mount Sterling. That doesn't necessarily mean Mount Sterling is going to have a 60-mile-an-hour wind. What it does mean, though, is that the modeling is seeing the potential for that somewhere nearby. Make sure everything outside is secure. Unfortunately, it's garbage day in my neighborhood tomorrow, and so I suspect that's going to be some issues. When I get home tonight, I'm bringing the deck furniture inside. All just precautions, just in case. And that's kind of the whole mantra, just in case. Do the things to keep everything safe. You're seeing as we roll into the afternoon, I mean, it's still going to be windy, but the worst of the winds at that point will have rotated on up into Indiana and Ohio. Okay, anything else? Any chance of this becoming a Cat 5? I don't think so, just for the fact that it's got about another hour and a half over water. If this had another 6 hours, yeah, the way it's going, absolutely. But it's running out of real estate, and so we'll put the radar back on here for you because that's a lot more exciting. That's what we call in TV a good visual. So there it is, and we're losing. We may be getting a little attenuation on the back of the eye wall, and it's also getting a little more ragged. That may be now we're getting intersection with the land. So this has probably done all it's going to do, but all it's going to do, I'll put the stats on here. There we go. All it's going to do is, that's a mid-level Cat 4. And again, the barometer at 1941. Let me see if there's been any updates from the Hurricane Center real quick. I'm glad y'all have been patient with this. We had that first go-around where that was operator error more than likely. Okay, so we've got last update is as of 9, so that's 40 minutes ago. Yeah, so no changes on those numbers from 9 o'clock. So there is your setup. Let me get back on the Facebook page. Okay. And the Begley's watching. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's anything. So we're getting conflicting information about the Chicken Fest. Again, check with your local folks. Driving to Orlando tomorrow. You'll be driving through the teeth of it. Same thing for anybody who's going to the Ole Miss game. You'll be going through the teeth of it. Be safe. Drive carefully. Take your time. Don't rush it. Is it going to be bad in Lexington? I fully expect torrential rain. I fully expect very strong winds during the day. Is it something that we'll get through? Yeah. Is it going to be a hassle to get through it tomorrow? Probably at times. Will we have power outages? I suspect that's a reasonable bet. It's whatever we see, though, will pale compared to what's going to go on in the Florida Panhandle on up into South Georgia. This is going to take hurricane force winds, like I said, all the way up to Macon. March 2nd, Belinda asked March 2nd. March 2nd, a couple of years ago, when Kentucky recorded its lowest barometric pressure from a storm that came up through the Ohio Valley. And we saw about 3 hours of near hurricane force wind gusts. And that caused a lot of tree damage. Biggest one that I know of was the military pike tree there on the south side of Lexington, Harrodsburg Road Military Pike. That tree had been around for hundreds of years, and it took it out. Power outages, there were some folks that were out for a week with that because there was so much tree and power line damage. So that's the March 2nd that we're referring to. And again, some of the strongest winds that we've seen across the bluegrass with that. So again, Belinda, hopefully I answered your question. Do I have any info on Owensboro? It's a wonderful city along the Ohio River in Davis County. Used to be home of the Executive Inn. Beyond that, the storm itself will be parking itself somewhere around there. They're going to, just like everybody else, heavy rain and a lot of wind. And that storm will be hanging around there actually near the Owensboro probably until at least Saturday. All right. In terms of storms, not so much in terms of thunderstorms, just rain tonight, and the wind will be picking up as well. Will it push out by Saturday morning? No, it'll actually rotate back around, and we'll see showers and storms into Saturday and probably into Sunday as well, although in a lesser state. So tomorrow is the big deal, lesser amounts Saturday, even less on Sunday. Just trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Yeah, tomorrow, I mean, it starts tomorrow morning. I mean, it's raining now. The rain's going to get heavier and steadier tonight. The wind is also going to pick up tonight, but it won't be the really high winds tonight. Tomorrow we start getting those tropical bands to come through, and with those, that's where you get the squalls, where you get the tremendously heavy rain, where you can see those very strong winds. And really, there'll probably be a couple of bands coming through. Again, the window opens around 6. I think it closes now maybe 3. So we've added a couple hours to what we had there on that earlier graphic, which I still have to fix before 11 o'clock. Alrighty. And so I think I'm getting up to date. Prayers are certainly not a bad thing. Will it weaken as it hit land? Tracy asked that. Yes, it will weaken. In fact, that weakening process will begin literally as soon as that center gets inland. In fact, I think it may actually already be starting, as you know, the strong convection here that's wrapping into the eye wall is already beginning to intersect land. And so that's why the eye, which when we started this Facebook Live was a nice concentric or nice perfect circle, and now it's getting more ragged. So there might be some frictional forces that are starting to come into play. But yeah, once this leaves its food source, and once it leaves the relatively frictionless area over the water, once it hits land, you cut off its food, you add friction to it, that begins the weakening process. And that does happen almost immediately. But this storm is so big and so strong that it's going to take a while. And that's why we could see this still as a tropical storm all the way to Kentucky. That we may be able to have it still maybe, it won't be like Depression Helene. This could actually still be Tropical Storm Helene by the time it gets here. So that, again, is on the table. Will there be high winds in Knox County? Absolutely, especially on the hilltops. But throughout Knox County, you're under a high wind warning. So, yes, it will be a very windy day in Knox County. Let's see, get down here to the currents. Oh, I love, okay. Montgomery County is like everybody else with this. Montgomery County, you're going to have heavy rain and high wind tomorrow. And the potential is there that you can see those wind gusts up to 50, 60. Now, we're going to wrap this up here. If this were all snow. If this so yeah, this would be 30 inches of snow-ish. And yeah, it is basically is coming straight at us. So when we expand this out again, so yeah, so if we take the path, and pardon my drawing skills here, basically it comes up probably to the east side of I-75, what's happening is that there is a low that's dropping out here. And what's going to happen as Helene comes north, this low over here is going to capture it and capture the circulation and draw it back northwest. This is what's called a Fujiwara effect, which that's the new buzzword that you've heard all over social media, because it's a buzzword. It's a phenomena that we've talked about for decades, but that's what happens is it'll wrap in, and actually it'll probably end up somewhere out here, and then on Saturday and Sunday it will gradually lift out that way. So that's your setup with this. But yeah, it is basically coming straight at Kentucky. And we'll call it an I-75 storm, but it's close. Russell Springs, you're going to have the storm center. If you have a barometer there in Russell Springs, that will be fascinating to see. Because again, you're going to have the center come very close to you. You're going to have high wind and rain. Again, I'm leaving South Carolina. You're leaving Jonathan, you're leaving South Carolina in the morning. If you're trying to come to Kentucky, depends on where you're leaving, because coming across the mountains of North Carolina tomorrow is not going to be fun. I mean, you're going through the Nantahala there, or even on I-26. You could see those winds 60, 70 on the high peaks. It'll be 80, 90, maybe 100 in places. But luckily the roads don't go up there unless you happen to be driving up to Mount Mitchell, or driving on the Blue Ridge Parkway. But be alert and be aware if you're trying to drive through the North Carolina mountains tomorrow, especially in the morning. Is this going to give us a tornado? Likely not. It's a cliche here at the station. It's amazing. It literally is amazing how many times I have gone out of town and a tornado has happened. I mean, like I said, it's to the point that it is a cliche. But this time I was supposed to be leaving town and a hurricane happens. So, maybe it's nature's way of saying, Bill, don't go. In beautiful Berea. Okay. Yeah, boys and girls, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. So thank you for your patience. My goodness, thank you. I know it was a rocky start to all this, but hopefully it's an all's well that ends well. Again, thoughts and prayers to the folks down there in Florida, because again, this is going to be bad. I talked about small saving graces. Well, this part of Florida is not heavily populated. It's not this part of the Panhandle. It's not the Atlantic coast. It's not the part from Tampa down. It's a relatively unpopulated area, but still there are people there. Hopefully they've gotten out of the way, because this will change the coastline. It will. Going back to Hugo, because that's the storm I know best. When it came through the Isle of Palms, it cut a hole in it. Literally cut a path, an inlet through the Isle of Palms. It split it in half. Because barrier islands in general are not permanent features. They move, they shift. They do their job of blocking the worst that the oceans throw at them. But again, that comes at a cost to the island. But again, we also have developed all of these, so we want to make it back to the way it was, and that's what they'll do. So again, you're seeing the eye wall. They're approaching, since this thing's moving 20 miles an hour, it's gotten a whole lot closer since we've been on. So from the edge of the eye, we're about an hour out, give or take. So right about, hey, if you're watching LAX 18 News at 11, and of course you are, that'll be right about the time it's coming in. So be tuned in for that. Stronghold hair gel, yeah, thanks. But at least it stays there most of the time. One more time, last time. Tomorrow, starting early in the morning and then running into the afternoon, area wide. So this is your county. Heavy rain, torrential rain, 2 to 4 inches of rain likely. Some folks may get a little bit more, a few folks a little bit less. Regardless, it's going to be a lot of water. High winds. I think 25 to 40 sustained is a real good option for a few hours with this. We could see wind gusts 50 to 60 plus. And again, the potential for that is area wide. And that could very well last now. It looks like maybe into the middle of the afternoon. So tomorrow is a very windy, incredibly rainy day because it is the remnants of a powerful hurricane. It was also been amazing too is that how the modeling has done with this. Even before this thing was on the map, before there was anything, most of the longer range modeling had a hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast. Most of the runs pretty doggone close to where this is ending up. There were a couple of runs that had it coming up through Louisiana and Mississippi, which would have impacted the football game, but those were little outliers. Now, again, it's been amazing how well they've done. The Euro, even the American model, the Euro AI version, again, they've been right on with this pretty much the whole way. So that part's been pretty interesting. With that said, what is interesting to the meteorologist can be catastrophic for those in front of it. So again, keep your friends, your family, anyone you may know down there, everyone down there in your thoughts and prayers. And we'll have a complete report for you coming up on LAX 18 News at 11. Now the question is, can I turn off the Facebook Live? So again, thank you all so much, and then thank you for your patience. And we don't want Team Viewer. How about this? Let's make that, you see the Team Viewer there, make it